Boxing negotiations make sense to no one.
I also wanted to open up to the audience for any questions. So if you have some questions, please raise your hand or membership card. Let's go to member here.
Amateur boxing and professional boxing are very different. And you work with a lot of boxers who have been through the Team GB pathway and been to the Olympics and signed a bit later. And maybe like Callum French, I think you work with him. Obviously Anthony Joshua, but you also work with a lot of boxers who've signed very early, like John Hedges or Maisie Rose Courtney, who've signed when they're 18 years old, and you just signed a couple of boxers like Giorgio Visioli, who just won the ABAs. Yeah. Do you think it's...
Your stuff.
Huh? Yeah, I know my stuff. Do you think it's more important for a boxer to stay in the amateurs, try win the Olympics before turning pro, or do you think turning pro when like 18 or 19 is more beneficial for you as a promoter? Like, what do you think are like the good properties when you're picking out a boxer?
It's a good question. I think, and because that's quite a deep question for boxing and quite a hardcore question, I'm going to put it into life context, right? Okay. With something that you guys might understand. Have a seat, because I don't understand that. Imagine a situation where pedigree is very important, right? If you're a racehorse and you come from the right pedigree, there's every chance that you're going to go and perform on the top stage. If you go to Oxford and you perform at Oxford and you get that education and that grounding, when you come into the professional world, as an employee, there's every chance that you guys are going to be an asset and going to go on and do very well in that chosen profession. When you don't, or you missed the boat, or you couldn't get into Oxford, or you decided not to go to university, and you went into the workplace, those 3 years that you have in the workplace are going to develop you into a different kind of animal, different kind of beast. So there's two ways to look at it. Number one, I will always look at the pedigree. I'm not talking necessarily about the workplace, but in a boxing sense. If you went through the GB system, if you won ABA championships, if you won Olympic gold, I'm putting my money on you. And it's a little bit like you guys going into the workplace. If someone comes out and says, well, I went to Oxford and I did business or I did politics and I got first or whatever, there's a very good chance that you're going to be an asset to the business. Now, just because you got a good education doesn't mean you're going to go and make it in the professional world. Let's flip that back to boxing. Just because you did well in the amateurs doesn't mean you're going to make a great pro. And some of those fighters that got rejected in the amateurs are the ones that have the edge and the ones that have the spirit and the desire. Someone like Callum Smith, he didn't make the Olympics and it pissed him off so bad. He went away and he worked his nuts off, and then he ended up being one of the best fighters from that GB system, So, but you don't get the opportunity to sit in front of me as much when you haven't had the pedigree. So I have to find the rough diamonds is the best way to describe them. One of my biggest assets in my company is Frank Smith. Frank Smith started work for me at 15. He was selling raffle tickets. And I told him to go and do his A-levels. He said, I'm not going to do my A-levels, I want to go into the workplace. He's carved out a career for himself that's unbelievable because he's a rough diamond. But there aren't many. So in an equal race between someone that didn't make the amateur mould and someone that did, I will always choose the one with pedigree. But sometimes the ones with pedigree don't always have it in here because they might have had a little bit of an easier ride,
Does anyone else have any questions? Let's go to the member at the front here.
I was just going to say, with someone with a front row seat for the negotiations, where would you put the blame on the fact that Joshua Fury didn't happen? Was it the dynamic between you and Frank Warren, or the egos of the two fighters, or the TV companies, or combination?
I think it's a bit of everything. You've got two huge names that have different broadcasters. Firstly, that's very difficult. But Fury's like, on Instagram, I mean, for those who would have seen at home with the Furies, you would have got the idea of the negotiations, which were literally like, we were making progress. And the lawyer would say to him, just give us another 5 o'clock today or it's off. And then he's on Instagram going, you got 2 hours, Joshua. And Joshua's thinking, fuck off. Like, we're reading the contract. Give me a chance. So part of you feels like he never really wanted the fight, but then there's a load of money and he loves his money. So I don't know, he's a strange character. And then you've got Warren, who doesn't like me. I don't particularly like Frank Warren, you know. So it doesn't mean we can't get a deal done. It just means it's slower than normal. And when you're put on a clock by someone, it's almost like a disrespect of, you got to sign it by 5 p.m. Well, we're not going to be ready. Then you lose the fight, and I'm coming out on Instagram and telling the world. It's like, come on. If you really want to make this fight, let's try and actually go through the professional process and try and get it done. But boxing negotiations make sense to no one, you know. I don't think they ever will.
More generally speaking, like what is like the biggest obstacle to getting like the big fights and even like the smaller fights?
Like silly stuff. Like I'll give you an example. Chris Eubank against Conor Benn, which is obviously now resurfacing. So neither of them have a belt. They're both big names. So the first thing I think about is whose name is going to go first. I mean, as bizarre as that might sound. Is it going to be Eubank v Ben, or is it going to be Ben v Eubank? Now I know what Eubank's like. He's going to want to go first. So I've got to go to Conor Benn and say, listen, it's going to be Eubank against Ben. But I'm going to get you walking second to the ring on the night. All right. As long as I'm walking second, it can be called Eubank Ben. And then we go back to Eubank. I go, good news. Conor Benn's agreed that you can go first on the poster. Good, good. But obviously, he wants to walk second. Absolutely not. I'm walking second. He's like, no, come on, mate. You've gone first on the poster. He's like, no. If I don't walk second, there's no fight. I'm like, you lot are going to throw away 3 million quid each because of whose name's first on a poster. So he's not moving. So I go, all right, I'm going to have to go back to Conor Benn and convince him to go second on the poster and ring walk first on the night. So I phone up Conor Benn. Bit of a problem. We can get the fight made, but you've got to walk first. Absolutely not. Tell him to go fuck himself. There's no fight. And then it takes a week to get everyone to calm down and try and change their mind, consider it. So we as promoters, all we want is big fights. That's where we make our money. So it's very frustrating dealing. Like I'm telling you that story, you lot are probably listening going, mental. But that is like every day of making a fight.
Bring them together.
Yeah.
Let's go to the member on the Access bench.
Hello, thank you once again for sharing your inspirational story. As a lifelong judo player, I can relate to many points. But my question is it more difficult to promote players or boxers from smaller countries with obviously less sizable audiences? And is it more difficult to get the shot at the title when you are coming from a smaller country or place than from a bigger total addressable market? Thank you.
Like Croatia.
Like Croatia, for example.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, I think you've only got to look at like every fighter should be built in their hometown and their home country. So if you look at fighters like Lomachenko, which was probably the first example of a fighter from, say, a random country, from Ukraine, who came to America to try and crack the American market via ESPN. And historically, American fight fans aren't really interested in a guy from the Ukraine. I mean, you have to tell the story. what they had to do is move him faster. So he fought for the world title in his second fight and, you know, lost that fight, but moved quickly, and people realised this guy was actually a genius. So, you know, people like Filip Hrgović, who we talked about earlier, are at a bit of a disadvantage because the money is not available in their home country in terms of TV rights and ticket sales. I mean, I actually think Filip Hrgović would do well in Croatia in a big fight. But it's a very risky game for a promoter to say, I've no idea. I mean, the broadcaster in Croatia won't pay the money. We need to do a big fight there. And we have no idea if it's going to actually sell tickets. So we're better off putting him on at the O2 or in America. So I think it's harder for fighters from smaller countries to travel into other territories because it's more difficult for the promoter to tell the story, especially if that fighter doesn't speak English. And you see that with a lot of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan fighters who are probably the very, very best. You know, Gennady Golovkin is a good example of a fighter that came over and actually did capture the audience in America because he knocked everyone out. And he was fascinating and spoke very little English at the time.
So at the end of the day, it all comes down to building a narrative, as you said.
Yeah, building a fan base, but it comes down to performance. If you can perform in the ring and you're exciting, then I can sell it. So people like, that's what I said about Gennady Golovkin. You're under more pressure to excite and entertain being a foreign fighter outside of your domestic market.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any questions? Let's go to the member on the front bench.
Hi Eddie, thanks for coming. People often compare boxing and mixed martial arts for a lot of obvious reasons. One big difference we see is it feels like the UFC have much more of a monopoly in MMA than any single boxing promotion does in boxing. I'm curious why you think this is, and if you think we'll see a trend in either of those two sports to look more like the other one in the future.
Yeah, good question. The answer is I would like to, because I'm very jealous of the UFC's model. The UFC have central contracts that a fighter signs, and you are basically told who you are fighting from that pool. So, like, and the margins are completely different. In boxing, we might work off a promotional company 20% of the margins from the profit of the show. It's actually more like 80% in UFC. But you imagine that a fighter signs a central contract. It says what you get for fight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, win bonuses, etc. And you literally get a phone call, like in that instance, to say, hello, Eubank, you're fighting Ben on February the 4th. Have a good training camp. We'll see you there. That's it. How good is that? You know, but we're quite weak in boxing. Like fighters are, most fighters are grossly overpaid in terms of their commercial value. That's the reality. Fighters are making 7 figures. They're not selling arenas. They're not doing pay-per-view numbers because of the competition between promoters. So we want to make sure we beat Top Rank or Frank Warren, and we won't lose a fight. We'll pay him a bit more, and you end up in this mad world. And we're actually trying to reshuffle the boxing marketplace to say to mainly advisors and lawyers, no easy fights. We'll pay you the money, but you've got to be in a proper fight because otherwise the product becomes weakened. I get the blame. And we want to be more like the UFC. Interestingly, they don't own mixed martial arts. They definitely have a monopoly. But you have Cage Warriors, you have Bellator, you have all these other brands. But what Dana did, which was so impressive, is, like, you know that any mixed martial artist in the world is dying to sign a UFC contract. They'll do anything. And actually, the money's pretty poor. But they're dying to sign one. So they've built that brand. And there are a lot of fighters that want to sign a contract with Matchroom, but not at any length, you know. So what he does is he's created this sort of perception that once you're in the UFC, you've made it. But what a blessing to be able to say, you can literally sit there with your whole stable and saying, he's fighting him. Just tell him. It's done. You can't say no. I mean, you could retire or leave the pool if you won't take fights. But they don't. They just say, okay. And that's really how you get the best fights.
And so we see with Ngannou, he's obviously rejected his UFC contract. So do you think in the future it will be more power to the fighters? And
I think UFC never want a fighter to have too much power. And I think Conor McGregor was the first fighter that almost became bigger than the UFC. And they had to change their model. They had to probably pay him more revenue, pay him more of the pay-per-view split. So really they want you to be big, but probably not too big.
What's your opinion on trans athletes' participation in sport, and how do you think it should be regulated in boxing?
I think boxing is, I mean, you're talking about a sport where the aim is to effectively go in and knock your opponent out. So it sits a little bit differently to a game of golf, a game of tennis. I think that really sport is about a level playing field. And I think there's a lot of physical sports that there would be advantages in certain, aspects and certain situations. So I think all sport is different, but, I think that there's very few sports where females and males can participate at the same level on the same playing field. And I love it when we do. I mean, I don't know, we own the darts, right? And there's a darts player called Fallon Sherrock who is beating the men, and it's just amazing to watch. But obviously when a sport becomes more physical, that changes. So I think, on that subject, it's really about setting clear guidelines as to what is fair and what is not fair. And it's not fair for someone to have a natural physical advantage over an opponent or a competitor. And that's not a level playing field. If you start on the same physical and scientific playing field and one becomes better and stronger through their training and their strength and conditioning, that's one thing. But an unfair advantage is not, I think, in the ethics of the sport.
Hi, you mentioned your biggest achievements and proudest moments in your career. Could you maybe talk about some regrets in your life or the lessons that you've learned?
I don't think you should regret too much. I know it's a bit boring to say, like, you never lose, you learn, all that kind of stuff. But I do think that's true. I think as long as you live your life and operate with passion and with decisions made from within, you can't really ever be wrong. Do you understand? There's things that don't work out for you, but as long as you actually follow your heart and make decisions based on how you feel, you can be smart, but you can make decisions through your brain and in a smart way that might backfire, or you might get it wrong scientifically or mathematically. But I find it a lot less painful to make a decision through your heart and get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I'll give you an example. When Anthony Joshua got beat by Andy Ruiz at Madison Square Garden, we'd already sold out the arena. I took a list of fighters to Anthony Joshua and his trainer and said, which one do you want? And they said, we think Andy Ruiz is a good fight. Now, I knew Andy Ruiz was a tough fight, but I wanted a tough fight. Like, I felt like we've sold out Madison Square Garden. This is Anthony Joshua's debut. Don King was phoning me up saying, I've got this perfect guy. He looks great, but he's useless, right? And AJ will knock him out in one round. Great business for you. And I thought, that's rubbish. We're at Madison Square Garden. We want a real fight. And I said, no, we're going to go with Andy Ruiz. And he went, Andy Ruiz? He went, he looks terrible in his shorts. Big belly. Like, if AJ beats him, no one's going to care. And he can fight. And I went, yeah, I know. That's the whole idea. Be great. Be a great fight at Madison Square Garden. Next thing, AJ gets stopped in 7 rounds, and Don King phones me up. I told you should have taken my man. You know, and it's like, maybe we should have, but for all the wrong reasons. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was like, I feel like if you're making the right decision based on how you feel, like, it's a bit like you guys as well. You know, you're following your dreams in something. You're taking degrees, you've got your ideas and your plans. As long as that is what motivates you, you're not doing it because, oh, your parents wanted me to do this course, or I did this course because I didn't really know what else to do. Ain't gonna work. As long as you make a decision, go, that is what I want to do. This is what I believe in. And for me, it might be the product, or it might be the fight, or it might be the occasion. But then if it goes wrong, it felt right at the time. I knew in my mind, this feels right, but it went wrong. It's okay. You learn. If we do a show and it loses a lot of money, you know, when AJ got beat, it was hard for me. And us as a business, I was devastated. For him, like our top guy just got beat, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring Lomachenko to London, and he's going to fight Luke Campbell at the O2. And this was 3 months after. And Matchroom are going to bounce back. Lomachenko's never fought in this country. He's an all-time great, and I think Luke Campbell can beat him. So let's pay Lomachenko to come. We're going to sell out the O2. We're going to do loads of pay-per-view buys. But for everyone saying Matchroom are finished now, watch us go. We sold out the O2. The pay-per-view was shit. I lost £1 million. Right? I'm like, what? That hurts more. Because that wasn't necessarily a decision through here. Excuse me, ladies. That was a decision through here. It was. It was ego. Right? It was not thinking straight. It was not thinking about the maths, the budget, the science of the business. Yeah? That was a situation where pure heart and emotion took over. And it felt right at the time. But it was really a decision made by emotion rather than a clear head. So I regret that, because my dad reminds me about it most days. Yeah.
Hi, Eddie. Thank you for coming down tonight. Just a quick question about the YouTube boxing sort of stuff. Do you think that the sport's gained what it can from it, and do you think it's going to become a detriment to the sport from now on, after like the big fights have been sort of done?
I think we have to be careful as a product, because what happens is broadcasters don't really care about the sport or the grassroots or the community or the growth, or what they care about is the numbers. And if there's a product that does better numbers than something else, like boxing's amazing. When you get it right, the numbers are incredible. But when you don't, it doesn't work. So I feel like people, broadcasters particularly, are going to look at YouTube boxing. And YouTube boxing doesn't always do well, by the way. But when it does, and it's cost effective, because these guys are making a lot less on the whole than normal boxers on the card. Like, the other argument is, does an increase in audience through YouTube boxing translate to people watching professional boxing? I think the answer is probably no, or very little. So I'll give you an example. DAZN as a platform do 1.3 million pay-per-view buys for KSI against Tommy Fury. How many of those people will tune in to my show on the platform the following week? Now, listen, if it's 10%, that's still good for the sport. But what we need to try and do is convince that audience that bought last week that there's a better world out there. And it's called professional boxing. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how passionate I feel about it. But I know that my kids will want to tune in to watch Logan Paul and KSI. They might not want to tune in to watch, I don't know, Joe Cordina from Monaco this weekend. So we have to work harder, and we have to keep improving the product, make sure the fights are better, more competitive, to make sure that the numbers are good enough, that the broadcaster doesn't go, I think we're going to do more of this YouTube stuff and less professional boxing, because that could happen if we don't get it right. But I've got a question for you guys, because this is something I talk about on my podcast, right? What is success to you? Anyone that I want to know your opinion of success. You, sir, the tall fella who was standing with me. Yeah. What is your opinion of success?
So I'm gonna need that microphone. Eddie, thanks so much for choosing me.
I don't want any I don't want any fluffy stuff. I want your honest opinion on what is success to you.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's if you're able to straighten out core values, you find, or essentially a core metric, you find you value how you match up to that. So it could be monetary, it could be emotional and other things. So.
But what is your version?
Right. So.
What does success look like to you? Is it coming out of here with everything you want, getting your dream job, buying your dream house?
Well, I think I see it a little simpler for me. Family is very important, so providing for my family is
nice answer.
Kind of where that is.
What about you? Yeah, you. And after that, you've got to raise your hands. I want 3 or 4 people telling me.
I think it's you're going to hate this answer if you didn't want a fluffy answer, but just being happy with your life. So that can be obviously different for different people. It depends what you want from your life in terms of whether that is being able to buy a supercar, whatever it is, or if it's spending time with the right people. But it's your own version of happiness. So it's quite hard to define. I think that's the problem. You know, you can't point to a single thing because not everyone's going to want that same thing. If they did, it'd be life would be a lot easier. Everyone just goes for that same thing, and you've got no problems. But I think that's why it's difficult.
Good answer.
Cheers.
Yes, sir.
I think.
And listen, be as brutal as you want. Don't say the fluffy nice stuff.
I think success is whatever makes like your 10, 12-year-old self feel proud. So whatever you dream of as a kid, if you can achieve that, that's success. I think for me personally, it's a bit like your situation. My father came from nothing and he's done very well for himself. And for me, success would be doing better than my father. So making my father proud, I think that's success for me.
Nice. Anyone else? I'll go next to you just while you're there. Look. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah.
I think maybe this might be a gender thing. Obviously, you want to kind of outdo your father. I want to make mine proud. I mean, my dad's a very kind of hard-faced man, and he very rarely says, like, I love you and I'm proud of you and all that kind of stuff. So I think, like, when I got into Oxford, my dad cried, and I've never seen my dad cry. He teared up, like, he gave me a hug, like, he looked really proud. And I think if I graduated here with a first, he'd be very proud. I think if I went on to have a successful career, he'd be very proud. I think rather than outdo my dad, I think I'd like to see that again. I'd like to see him look proud of me, kind of an approval sort of thing.
What a lovely answer. Made me well up a little bit. 2 more.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's, for me, just taking like the hand you were given, that's like what you're given naturally, but also the upbringing you were given, and just all of those who contributed to that upbringing for me, just making sure that I'm giving my absolute all what I'm doing to make them proud, very similar to that. I thought that was a lovely answer and very much agree. Just like once I've finished here, and then go on to whatever I want to do, I want to make sure that I've given my all and not left any stone unturned to pay homage to what those who helped bring me up did for me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you go on. Okay, you're hogging the mic. Go on. Oh, are you going to do yours?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting question. For me, success is more small successes. So each day I've got well, if I get up and I finish my essay before midnight, that's a small success. Or small progression throughout the day, throughout the week. For me, when I can total those up, I was like, okay, I've had a successful day, successful week, rather than a long-term goal. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years' time where I'm going to look at success. Whereas I can see success on a short-term basis, and to me that means more than something more long-term.
It's a good question, good point. The reason I ask this is you should all tell yourself the answer to the question, and you should all write it down. Because even by telling yourself that, you've realised what the most important thing is to you. Your answer was spot on, because everybody's interpretation of success is different, right? When I was younger, I thought success is making 10 million a year, EBITDA. I think we can buy a yacht. Do you know what I mean? It's quite cringe, actually, looking back, right? But now, success for me is honestly just how I feel, right? How I feel when I wake up, how I feel when I walk through the office doors, how I feel when I go to bed at night. And it's just purely in here. Now I've achieved some stuff, things have gone my way, I'm older than you guys, but you should ask yourself that question that I just asked you. What is your interpretation of success? You're a lot of nice people, you've got a lot of nice answers. Some people got some horrible answers because they're very cold and but you have to live in a way where you can try and achieve your interpretation of success. Because I love that question, I love it. And as your life evolves, it will change every couple of years. Do you know what I mean? But you must live in the moment of what success looks like for you. But if you can live every day happy, content, and okay here, that's a success. And if you can love what you can do, you can be grateful for what you can do, and you can enjoy what you do, that should be a success. But at your ages, you've got to chase your futures, you've got to chase your careers, and you're going to go through loads of ups and downs. And then when you're going to get to my age, you're going to go, actually, like, it's been a good run, but I just want to have fun. I want to enjoy what I do. So do your best to enjoy it, and always remember what success looks like to you, because I think success comes from fulfillment. Doesn't have to be goals, doesn't have to be grades, doesn't have to be results in sport. It can just be, I used to think that someone who lived in a small house and didn't have a great job, well, they're not successful, are they? How are they successful? But they might be more successful than me now, in my mind. Do you know what I mean? If that person's waking up every morning and going, I love my life, I'll tell you what, I've got a great life. I go 9 to 5 because I can pick the kids up from school. I go over to the park with them at night. I am so happy. What a success that is. Whereas the other guy, who's a billionaire, who's the most miserable bloke you've ever seen. This is not me, by the way, because I'm not quite there yet, and neither will I be miserable when I am. But do you understand what I'm saying? So life, don't take life too seriously. But that was for my benefit more than your benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.